Why some UFC fighters look better than what they actually are. Alright, what's good, boys? Today we're back with another video. Today is going to be a controversial one. So, if your favorite fighter is here, I'm sorry, bro. It doesn't mean I'm hating on them or they're bad at fighting or anything like that. Just hear me out, okay? Okay, what I mean by this is their fight style tends to make them look better than what they actually are. And not even to just casual fans, to like quote-unquote hardcore fans as well. Alright, and that's going to lead me to my first pick right here. Okay, Tony Ferguson, number one, right? I already know somebody's typing a hate comment right now. Okay, full disclaimer before I say this, alright? I'm not hating on Tony. I really enjoy him as a fighter. Like, when I first decided to become like a hardcore, quote-unquote, he was one of my favorite ones to watch, right? Yeah, like I said, when I first decided to become like a hardcore, I started watching, and Tony was one that drew my eyes instantly, right? Like, he has a very fan-friendly style. He cuts people open. There's that crazy picture of all of his opponents after the fight and everything. They really always painted him as like the boogeyman and shit, right? Even though objectively speaking, like, he was not the best fighter in the world, right? He was never beating Khabib. You know, at the time, people were like, he can throw elbows off his back. It's going to be a problem for Khabib and shit. Like, cut it out. That was never going to be a problem for Khabib. So he went on to lose to Justin Gaethje, and after that, he went on that huge loss streak, and people and himself made excuses for every single loss. Even for the Justin Gaethje loss, people are still coping about it to this day, and the Charles Oliveira. Like, he was on a 12-fight win streak before he lost to Justin Gaethje, so how was he so washed all of a sudden because Charles beat him? So just the aura and bias around him makes people overrate his actual skill set. Alright, next is Share Bullet. I don't think you guys will be too mad at this one, but it kind of goes without saying. He's just a flashy striker, and off that alone, like, fans are gonna love that. Just because he throws flashy shit, though, doesn't mean he's an elite fighter. I remember years ago, though, when I first heard about him, the Weasel was hyping this guy up. Like, bro, you would have thought he was the next John Jones coming into the UFC. I mean, even his current run in the UFC is very mid. He's not looked good since his debut, but fans, they'll still make edits of him, and they kind of overhype him just because they like watching him throw flashy shit. Alright, next is Rafael Fiziev. You know, he has a cool Muay Thai style. He bounces around. He has some flashy strikes, and he's actually good at fighting, okay? I'm not saying that he's a bad fighter, but people have always tended to very much overrate him. Even in matchups where he didn't look great, like against Moicano, but he eventually ended up getting the finish. I mean, I'm going to be honest, too. I fell victim to this, bro. You know, I liked his style, and the way people were hyping him up back then, I fell victim to it. You know, I thought he was going to beat the shit out of Justin Gaethje. This is the same guy that went toe-to-toe with Bobby Green. You know, shout out to Bobby Green, but you're not an elite fighter if you're almost losing to him on the feet. Even after his losses, though, people still tend to overrate him. One of my favorite videos on my channel is I predicted Mauricio Rufy beating him. And before that fight played out, a lot of people were leaving comments like I was crazy. Okay, so they were still being deceived by him, you know what I mean? They were being deceived by how he looks fighting, and they're just not properly rating him at his actual skill set. Okay, next, Ignacio Bahamondes. I can't lie, ever since he got that nasty spinning heel kick knockout against Roosevelt Roberts, he's been overrated. He does have a really fun style to watch, and that's the problem, though. Just because of that, people take him in matchups and stuff where he really shouldn't be favored going into. Also, he's training partners with Bilal Muhammad, and we've all seen the podcast clip of him and Joe Rogan. This kid's a monster, best striker at 155. He's definitely not that. This is the same division that has Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira. Like, what are we talking about? I even had somebody recently tell me that he's going to be the best striker within 2 years. Alright, next I put Michel Pereira. Most people nowadays rate him properly, but if you were watching him like a few years ago, people were talking about him like he was going to be a top contender. And honestly, he's never looked amazing. He just throws a lot of flashy strikes, as I've said with other fighters. He does backflips and just honestly throws like the wackiest shit that you've ever seen. And when you have a fighter like that, those are the clips and stuff that's going to go viral. And people that don't actually watch fights, they see him doing crazy shit like that, and they think he's a lot better than what he actually is. It's funny that him and Shara Bullet are here and they're fighting each other this weekend. I honestly look at Shara as just like the Michel Pereira of 2026. Okay, the same things that they were doing with Michel Pereira back then, they're doing the same thing with Shara now, if not worse. So I had to include him here. I think he's a prime example, and for anybody that's been watching for a long time, I think that you can agree. Alright, next I have Vinicius Oliveira. So this guy literally fights like a psychopath. I tweeted that out when he was fighting Kylie Phillips. Okay, shout out to my boy Horror MMA for this example. When he's not fighting elite competition, he's just walking them down with his hands down, throwing crazy strikes. Even in his last matchup, throwing back of the head strikes to Andre Fili. It was like hammer fists up against the cage. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but yeah, that shit was crazy. Up against elite competition, though, that shit's not gonna work. But I mean, he is fun to watch, but this is a great example. If you're just watching clips of him or watching him fight lower competition, you might think that he's like some amazing fighter. Okay, I can never make a list like this without including Yair Rodriguez. This is definitely a fighter that's gotten title shots. He's sat at the top of the rankings and stuff just because of his fight style. He's not that great. He loses to all elite competition. He just has a very fan-friendly style, throws a lot of flashy strikes, and the fact that he's from Mexico. The UFC was really pushing hard to get those Mexican champions, and Yair would just never be one of them. Yeah, so I'm happy that he's out of the rankings, and I hope that nobody's being deceived by this guy still. This guy also had the audacity to tweet at Ilia Topuria after his recent loss. Like, they should book that fight for Ilia next. Okay, Michael Chandler. This is the guy that put out Dan Hooker in his UFC debut, went to war with Justin Gaethje. He's put on some of the most entertaining fights in his career, but he's always been a fighter that relies on his athleticism. In big moments, right? You're a lot more likely to remember him getting a knockdown on a fighter or a big moment rather than him losing majority of the fight. A perfect example is when he was fighting old man Tony Ferguson. He got dropped by him, and then he ended up getting that nasty head kick knockout, right? But that doesn't get talked about too much. The only thing that gets shown is that picture of Tony's face. Okay, so with all of these fighters I gave examples of, I think they would fall under the highlight bias. A lot of fight fans' brains naturally overrate entertaining styles compared to the fighters that's actually elite. Okay, and Bullet, as I mentioned earlier in this video, he's a perfect example. He is a fighter that looks mid majority of the fight against low competition. Then he lands some flashy knockout, and then that little reel is posted all over social media, and that's the only thing that gets remembered. So the eye test in MMA just does not work at all. It's not objective, and it's heavily influenced by what our brains find exciting. There's a lot more examples I could have provided, but these are the first fighters that came to mind, so let me know what you guys think. I think one of the biggest problems with this is not the fans, but the fact that these fighters actually get rewarded by the UFC. Okay, the UFC has always been a lot more prone to reward these fighters and fight styles rather than fighters that actually deserve it. I mean, do you guys remember how Merab was being treated when he definitely should have had a title shot a long time ago? It's the same thing with Arman Tsarukyan right now. He definitely deserved it at the time, but it's getting to a point now where it's not crazy to say other fighters deserve it more. Hopefully the new rankings can change that up a bit, but my hopes are not high. I've not talked about it too much other than being happy that Nathaniel Wood is ranked, but I don't know, it's kind of a mess. My main point of this entire video is looking good is not the same as being good. You know, the 15-second clip of a fighter getting a nasty knockout is the only thing that's remembered, and not the entire fight where they were looking mid leading up into that. So just remember to separate potential from reality when it comes to MMA. There's a difference between saying somebody could be a champion against fighters that actually have the potential to be. But that also plays into the entire narrative conversation. Not everybody is a future champion, right? But so many fighters that come into the UFC nowadays, it feels like fans just call everybody a future champ. Example, fun fighter comes into the UFC, has some entertaining fights and moments. Fans push that narrative until they lose, and then they move on to the next person. Okay, I want to know what you guys think, though. Leave a comment. What fighter do you think has the best style that makes fans overrate them? Let me know what you guys think about the fighters that I listed in this video, too. I might make a part 2 because I do have a lot of examples in my head, so yeah, I want to see what you guys say first. Don't get deceived by these fighters like Ashara Bullet fighting this weekend. We'll see how that fight goes. I really hope he loses. He probably won't, going up against another highlight merchant, but nobody really looks at Michelle Pereira that way anymore. But yeah, I appreciate y'all boys. Thank you everybody that's been subscribing lately. We're almost at 100, and I'm going to be a lot more consistent dropping these videos. So stay tuned. Let me know if you guys want a part 2 or different video ideas to make and everything. Yeah, I appreciate y'all boys. Alright, I'll see you guys on the next video. Stay hydrated. Take care of yourselves. Peace.